The First Presbyterian Church is a historic church building in Utica, New York. The church and its related McKinnon House were added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1988. The structures are notable for their early 20th century design and architecture. The church was designed by Boston architect Ralph Adams Cram and built in 1922. The McKinnon House was designed by Binghamton architect C. Edward Vosbury and built in 1899. The year 1961 saw the joining of the church and the church house with the construction of a number of classrooms, fellowship hall, a modernized kitchen, and the installation of a Casavant Freres organ. The church facility hosts several ministries, including the Seeds of Hope Food Pantry. First Presbyterian Church maintains a well-stocked food pantry, which provides nutritional food and food products to individuals and families living in the region around the church. The pantry is a partnership of New Hartford First Methodist, New Hartford Presbyterian, our Saviour Lutheran, and Utica First Presbyterian Churches. The pantry is open on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. The Clothes Closet. The Clothes Closet provides free, clean, serviceable clothing for those who have a need for such items. Most sizes are available for adults, children, and infants. The closet is open on Thursdays from 9 to 11 a.m. The closet is open every Wednesday morning to accept donations. Free community Thanksgiving dinner, prepared and served on Thanksgiving Day every year since 1978. For individuals who are homebound and unable to come to the church, arrangements can be made in advance to have a complete meal delivered. Dinner is served from 12 o'clock noon to 2 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day. Universal Pre-K at First Church and First Nursery School of Utica. First Presbyterian Church assists the nursery school by providing scholarship grants for some students. Classrooms and offices are located within the facilities of First Church. Universal Pre-K classes have an average enrollment of 80 students, attending for 5 half-day sessions a week. First Nursery School of Utica classes for 3-year-old children are held 3 mornings a week. History. Long before Utica was incorporated as a city in 1832, it was a small village known as Fort Schuyler. Having been carved from unbroken wilderness 15 years before, it was there that First Presbyterian Church was organized, the oldest church in what was to become Utica. First Church was a sister to Whitesboro Presbyterian Church, being one and the same at the beginning of 1793 and known as the United Society of Whitestown. On February 18, 1794, this society was received into the Presbytery of Albany, being then farther west than any other Presbyterian church. The Rev. Bethuel Dodd was appointed and installed as the society's first pastor on August 21, 1794. Officiating in both congregations, Dodd spent 2/3 of his time in Whitestown and 1/3 in Fort Schuyler, his support shared by both churches. The Fort Schuyler congregation, legally incorporated as a church in 1804, assembled first in the village schoolhouse on Main Street and was later granted the use of Trinity Episcopal Church on Broad Street until a worship place could be constructed. In 1807 a church was built on Lower Washington Street. Used for 20 years, it was divided and moved to make way for a building of a larger structure. Dedicated in 1827, the new church was constructed of brick and included a spire 215 feet high. In 1813, the Utica congregation called the Rev. Henry White as its first full-time pastor. The corporation then took the name of the First Utica Presbyterian Society, which remains the church's legal name to this day. Following a disastrous fire in 1851, the imposing structure of Old First Church was built in the Romanesque Revival style on the northeast corner of Washington and Columbia Streets. This building served as a worship place for nearly 70 years. In 1919 it was decided to break with tradition and move uptown to what was then considered suburban Utica. In May 1921, the society purchased the McKinnon House estate, its present property, as the site for a new sanctuary. While the committee took stock of the possibilities of the McKinnon House, currently used as the church house, and is also referred to as Molly's House as a venue for coffee houses and other events, worship was held in temporary quarters on Oneida Square. Ralph Adams Cram, architect for the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York City, was chosen to design the new church. A major requirement of the plans was to reuse the walnut pews from the Washington Street Church, a factor which would determine many of the dimensions of the new church. Some of the decorative woodwork in Brewer Chapel came from the old building and temporarily graced the Oneida Square storefront, which was used as a transitional sanctuary. Groundbreaking for the new building occurred in July 1922, followed by the laying of the cornerstone in December. Occupancy and dedication took place Sunday, May 11, 1924, followed by 4 weeks of special events. The total cost of the building of the church was somewhat over $275,000, most of which was raised at 2 worship services in May 1922. The structure we now call the church house was built in 1899 as a lavish private residence by Robert McKinnon. It cost McKinnon $150,000 to build and $50,000 to $75,000 to operate. A few years later, McKinnon was forced into bankruptcy, and in 1911 the home was purchased for $40,000 by Charles A. Borst and his wife Grace Olmsted Borst. After his unexpected death in 1918, Mrs. Borst was forced to sell the house for $50,000 to a group of entrepreneurs who planned to turn it into an apartment house. Before the new owners had occupied the building, the church became interested in the property and the resale price climbed overnight to $65,000. The year 1961 saw the joining of the church and the church house with the construction of a number of classrooms, fellowship hall, a modernized kitchen, and the installation of the magnificent Casavant Freres organ. Throughout its history, First Presbyterian Church has had a strong mission emphasis. It has produced at least 17 missionaries and 24 ministers. The first Home Missionary Society was established in 1843, and in 1877 the Women's Missionary Society was organized. As of February 2020, the church building was for sale.